I want to talk about, I want to thank both of you. Thank you, Yim. Thank you, Yang, for your time. You recently published a piece about learning how recommender systems work with your own Facebook data. So what are we talking about? Let's start with Yim.
So this comes from a year-long project now that hopefully the paper about it will get accepted. But I work in the space of teaching people about social media algorithms in the world, how they may be affecting them, possibly oppressing them. And one of the best ways to learn or to pique your interest is to use your own personal data, which we have access to from Facebook. Access is a hard way to put it because they give it to you in the most complicated way possible, like a JSON dump to people that might not code, and it's hidden, and you're like, okay, what's this? You get a weird zip file. So part of the research I was working on made an interface for this kind of stuff to look at what Facebook thinks you're interested in for ads, and then walk you through how a recommender system might use that, particularly collaborative filtering. So using information from your friends to infer things about you.
So could you tell us what is this collaborative filtering?
So a very, very simple version, and a short caveat is Facebook is probably using now like deep learning methods, using tons and tons of features in combination to recommend things. It's probably not using the simplest form of collaborative filtering, so just like a brief caveat with that. But the basic idea and where we start with the machine learning problem is, could I use similar people to me to mine recommendations from? So if you have a bunch of people who are interested in the same kind of product or the same kind of movie, they've all clicked on the same kind of stuff, could you use that to then kind of mine other recommendations from each other? So I'm interested in something that you haven't seen yet, but we're interested in a lot of the same kind of things. Why don't I recommend the thing you haven't seen yet from me? That make sense?
That makes great sense. So let's move to the second part of it. So now there is a lesson plan about this, and Yang and you, both of you, work together to make it happen. So based on what you said, how are we doing it? How are we bringing it to the classrooms? What does it look like? What are we teaching kids?
Yang, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that question. So in this lesson plan, we're adapting Yim's amazing study into something that students will be able to do in the classroom. So it's really intriguing for students to explore their own data. And I think for that age students, they want to know like, oh, what do I like? What does Facebook think of me? So we're kind of leading with that as a teaser, but we're also diving deeper into how user-based collaborative filtering works. So after students do their own Facebook experiment, they're doing an exercise. This time it's about movies. So we give them a fictional database about similar to a streaming service that now they can figure out, okay, now I have 3 users and they're rating some movies. How would I use the same idea from the Facebook experiment to use similar people's preferences to make a recommendation? So we're kind of putting that into more detailed ways with concrete numbers so they can play around with that and understand Facebook better.
That's really interesting. And this is all being done in a classroom setting, virtual or physical classroom, depending on the COVID situation. But this is all being done unplugged?
Yeah, the exercises version of it, it's unplugged. So, you can adapt it to your classroom needs. If you're only doing a pen and paper exercise, you can do that portion of it. And then, so I think the 2 parts, Facebook experiment and the unplug exercise, can be adapted according to the classroom.
It's
And
interesting.
I can also say about that unplugged exercise, it's even what we use at the university or grad student level, but written, like I kind of like to tell people, like, when you start, right? If you start in high school, like, you can understand this. If you start in grad school, you can understand this. It just needs to be spoken to you in a way that resonates. So like we do the collaborative filtering movies, little, fill in the matrix in grad school. It's not as fun as what we did. It's like movie 1, movie 2, person 1, like X, like, okay, now calculate the cosine similarity, which we do, but we do it in a way that's like, oh, I wonder what they will be into. I wonder where I would fit in this.
That's a very good, important statement. Also a good transition. Goes to the question of why. So why is this so important right now to make sure that kids right now in high school, and I think this is the intended audience for this lesson plan. Why should they care? Why should they know about this? So let's talk about that a little bit.
I have a lot of answers. Should I?
This is why we're talking.
Okay, so some of the answers to that question would be, okay, we want more people in the tech field. We want to diversify the tech field. All of these things are really important. You can make money. You can, efficiency, productivity, all those great words that, are part of the capitalist regime. But and some of that is very true, right? The access to these skills is really important to be able to then be an asset in these fields. For me, the literacy kind of takes a left turn over into I strongly believe that we should have like a democratic participation in the design of these systems. So that means recognizing the system's effect on you. So like I think a lot in the spaces of like how diet culture gets like fed to kids. Someone brought up an example about they've been sober for however many years and Facebook still sends them alcohol ads. There's this intersection space of, if I understood more about what was going on, could I, make my mental well-being better with this kind of aspect of understanding the systems around us? And could we resist more severe oppression of these algorithms, algorithmic bias and things like that? So only seeing white skinny models, only seeing, the same kind of content over and over. I believe in a world where people have the agency and knowledge to participate in the systems more than we give them credit for now. That.
And Yang, what are your thoughts on why?
Yeah, similar to what Im said, I think recommender systems, in my experience, is often one of the first things students will say as an example of AI, probably only second to Alexa or Google Assistant. And we don't really understand how that works with our data. I think Facebook or other companies have been doing some things, like you can see on the ad, oh, why is this shown to me? And these data is not provided to us, which we're doing the Facebook experiment with. But a lot of people are still not really sure, how it's calculated for them. And I know from personal experience, so for some other things I did, I used to run Facebook ads. And it was really alarming to me that you can target people with very, very specific information, like locations they visited and their income level. So that was very alarming to me. And I don't think a lot of people have experience with that unless, they've been educated about it. And that now that you know how that works, it might change students' behavior on Facebook. I think a lot of times when you're on social media websites, it feels like everything that's being presented to you is the same for everyone. So it's as if it's not personalized. It's like television, everyone receives the same ads, but it's not like that. So I think kind of shedding light on how that works will make people think more critically about the content they're receiving.
I forgot we had a little chat about this, and I'm reminded, even when it's like social justice oriented, like positive things, I've forgotten, like, oh, not everyone is getting these like queer ads or like Black Lives Matter ads. Like, I'm like, wow, Facebook's so progressive. This is great. And then I'm like, wait, they can target whatever part of my emotions and whims they want. um it's just a good reminder. I will also say I try to build everything that I build from a not fear-based place, even though it's very important that there are some behavior changes, some privacy things. I don't work in the space of privacy, um, but I try to approach everything with like, what could I gain from this? What could I feel happy from this? What could I feel empowered from this to do?
I think both of you bring out really important points. If, by the way, for those of us that's watching this, the link to the lesson plan, the link to Yim's website will be underneath this video in the description. We made this, we made intentionally all the content free. And the reason we're doing a lesson plan, so we can speak the teacher's language, so we can bring it to more classrooms. So with that said, both of you, what is your message right now to the teachers that are a little bit hesitant to add this, or perhaps say, let's give it a try and teach this lesson plan, or try to bring it to the classroom? What is your direct message to the teachers that are watching this?
I will say just take a look at the lesson, explained in very detailed way that you can just pick up and use that in your classroom. I think right now there's a lack of a lot of AI resources. Teachers want to teach it, but they're afraid that, oh, I don't know enough about AI, or I don't have the correct resource. I would say, yeah, for example, this lesson plan, very easy to pick up, and it's super fun, and I think your students will love it.
I love that. Exactly that. So when you do pick it up, right, because you're an AI boss and you're going to do this with your students, and you're going to do this for yourself. You're going to do this while you're sitting at home, right? Maybe you want to see what your Facebook data is, right? It's for everybody. So once you pick this up, the one thing that I would say is to remember, Facebook data is personal. We're working in a personal space. You never know what some kid is going through. You never know what a person is going through. You don't know what will show up in data like that. And that while this is a fun exercise, there needs to also be some care around, one example I use is like closeted queer experience. Maybe there is a bunch of queer stuff in their Facebook data and they're not ready to come out yet, things like that. So just remembering we're all going through stuff. Who knows what can show up? Stay kind, stay curious, have fun.
Those are absolutely right on. I think that's really important also, and educators typically should be looking at this as an opportunity, again to bring not these materials just to the classroom, but also to have much larger discussions about other things, about how we are in what we're doing in our society, how we're interacting with each other. And you said it, it's about being kind, curiosity. And I think those two things, those two ingredients, we don't see it much nowadays. And with the virtual world that we're all living and interacting in, we're seeing it a little bit less. But I really hope this brings a new conversation to the classrooms. For those of you that are watching, feel free to download the lesson plan, and you can find Yim's contact information, Yang's contact information. You have any feedback, please feel free to contact them. All the resources are free. Hope you all enjoy using it. I want to thank you both. I want to thank you, Yim. I want to thank you, Yang, for spending the time to putting this together. You did it out of your own time, so I really, really appreciate it. And I hope lots of teachers use it and they come back with more feedback, because this is really impacting all of us. And we should have a conversation about it. And the sooner we do, the better off we are. And hopefully these conversations will start in a classroom.
Also, I was going to say the conversations will start because they're part of the lesson. We have discussion questions in there.
Here's a little tip into the lesson plan. So thank you all for your time and have a good day.